Okay, we're going to be going over the the latest development update for our now Android exclusive mobile game called WindWalkers. Um, to give a little context about the game, is the game design document. A lot of the nitty-gritty like details are in um, these documents here, the design documents, and the GDD isn't fully done yet. It's been iterated on a few times, but definitely needs to be revisited. We have MVP here. Um, but yeah, essentially the game concept, geospatial RPG, unique encounter system. It's heavily combat oriented. Players progress via a leveling system, job advancements, and um, a item system that actually has currently over 100,000 items. Um, it's a 3v3, up to a 3v3 turn-based combat system with unique skill and combat system. Turn-based game. The unique skill and combat system. So where can we start? So we can initially start about like how we've been organizing our project. A lot of the times we just we write on a high level like what are the main things we need to be doing. We separate them into different like columns. What are we working on? What did we finish? What's to do? And we have like a definition of done here. I'm not going to click into too many of these things for security reasons. We have like sensitive information in some of these things. But yeah, so combat design, let's see. Yeah, so these are the different types of encounters that you can find in Windwalker, and a lot of this is going to be combat oriented. NPC encounter, defeat NPC, combat, battle another player, combat, beast encounters. It's like you defeat a beast and then you have a chance to tame it. Calculations on how you might tame it, and kind of a diagram on what that flow would look like. Enemy encounter, Wheel of Fortune, boss encounter, things like that. Let's see, I think we can start with a combat demo just to get a sense of what the game should be or should look like and how it should play out. The camera is still like a work in progress. If you're not familiar with Unity, this screen on the right here, this is what the game view would look like. Um, and then this is kind of just like my God view camera. So I'm gonna go ahead and resume this game. And so you have a few buttons here. The UI is not done yet. It's just for functionality. And in the back end, how we break down these characters, we consider them as actors. And what happens at the beginning of combat is an initiative check is done. So what that means is every character, here you can see their stats, and then the items that they're using, whatever class they are, what level they are, will determine their stats, which would determine their secondary stats, such as physical damage, magical damage, physical defense. Oh, and when I say primary stats, I mean like strength, dex, intelligence, and constitution. So back to the initiative, the character with the highest initiative will begin combat first. The character with the second highest initiative will go second, and so on and so forth. So in this combat demo, my player has the highest initiative, so he goes first. He can choose to attack a target, he can choose to skip his turn, and he can choose one of 6 abilities that he has. So these skills, again, the UI is not done, but yeah, so I'm gonna use this skill here, and then immediately in the back end it shows that the current skill is the hurl rock ability. And now if I target enemy, hurl a rock, deal damage, the Q will begin. and my pet will attack the enemy just attacked both of us via a skill that it used. And our AI in our game doesn't just randomly choose a move. Instead, what it does is it has a chance to use different types of abilities, different types of skills. And that chance I can adjust based on what type of enemy or what type of like monster is attacking. So this makes it easy to design for certain certain creatures that maybe I don't want them to attack all enemies often. I can like increase or lower that. Single target buff skill, I can increase or lower that. And I can also determine how often they use skills versus basic attack by increasing the basic attack chance or lowering it. So what just happened is this little dog knight guy, he saw that there were more than one targets on the opposing side and had a 80% chance to use a target all skill if that were to be the case. And that's a pretty high chance, so it did exactly that. It hit both of us, making it a pretty optimal move for the AI. So it's not just random, there's logic behind what type of skills our AI uses. And then what's over here floating in the air is a skill that this minion standard is using called Merlin's Orb. Again, another target all skill chance. It's the same here. I didn't adjust it. I haven't really tweaked any values for any of the AI enemies or allies yet. So we're just going to resume combat and then let it play. I take damage, and then now it's this guy's turn. He just does a basic attack. And then now it's my turn again. Skill. Can use mass electrocution, which did a lot of damage. And looks like we're running into a bug here. I think this minion should be dead, but is it? It's still my turn, but looks like something weird happened. Should be able to resolve itself though. Okay, yeah, I was able to still attack him and hurt him. I haven't seen that bug in a while. I'm just gonna leave it though. So this is the first screen actually you'll see once you're logged in. And this is how you move around in the world. You can rotate the map and then move accordingly. And the longer you walk, the more likely you're to see an encounter. Currently, the encounters are just combat encounters. So I can accept this encounter, and then it should place me back in a combat encounter with new enemies. Just to test like that their animations were working. We have 76 different enemies with, they all have their own animation controller that triggers pretty much correctly. And they all have like animations working, yeah, like I said, fairly correctly. Let's see, let me just demonstrate another skill. This is a summoning ability. I summon a demon, and then now this demon's placed into the combat queue. What just happened was one enemy used a skill called mass berserking. Spell mass effect, mass. That wasn't it. I don't think I have the debug statements. So essentially, what happened was one of these enemies, not sure who it was, used the skill mass berserking. And what this does, there was a particle that played on every character in the board. Essentially, everyone does more damage and everyone takes more damage. And there's a chance that the AI will use that as well. So now you should see everyone dealing and taking more damage. I think that's the end of them. So that's a bug actually. I noticed in an earlier video I was testing. This demon was showing damage numbers, but actually wasn't doing any damage. So that's something that's I haven't seen before, but needs to be addressed. But yeah, at that much damage, the combat should be over. So I can try this ability here, and that should destroy every... Oh, he's still alive. Not anymore. Combat's finished, return to the map. So this is kind of like essentially what the gameplay loop could look like. Right now, it's not very challenging because um, there hasn't really been any balancing done. But yeah, it functions well, and I think what we just need to do more is tweak um, how combat should feel and how items would affect combat, and think about what types of enemies that players might encounter. Um, so what next? Let's see. Oh, so I can start going over some of these documents here now. We went over this encounter stuff. Actually, no, I don't think we did. So just real quickly, I just made another video before. Not sure if I went over this or not, but I'll just go again really quickly. Encounters, combat encounters. A lot of these encounters have some sort of combat in them. So combat is like the main focus of our game. PvP, we don't have live PvP in our game. At least we don't have plans for it. But we were thinking it would be fun to get snapshots of other players that we would have conveniently in our databases. And when sometimes when you have an encounter, it'll be a PvP encounter, and you would fight a snapshot of another real player, and you would see their real name and their items and the pets, and then you would gain some sort of reward. Yeah. And then this is beast encounter. You fight a beast essentially, and you have a chance to tame it. Flowchart, what that looks like. Boss encounter, just another combat encounter. And yeah, those are encounters. List of items. So we're gonna have soft currency, commonly seen in like RPG games. It's like gold, silver, premium currency, equipment, chests, equipment types, the helmet, chest, footwear, different weapons, characteristics of these weapons, rarities, pretty common, similar to what you would see in traditional RPG games. Common, uncommon, rare, very rare, ultra rare. Item generation. This is what I've been working on. What I worked on a few months ago, and then just yesterday I revisited. I revisited like the distribution of items based on levels and rarities, and then we can go over that a little later. Okay, so skills. This is just like thematically what skills should look like based on what class, based on the class type. So yeah, we can go over that now. These are the different skills. These are the passives. So when you reach this level requirement for any of these classes, you'll automatically gain these passives. And this was a way to also kind of push players towards using a certain type of weapon based on a class, because in our game, any class can use any item type, any weapon. Certain classes can dual wield, but we really wanted to try to push for marksmen's to use bows. And to do that, we made these passives where if you're using a bow as a marksman, you get damage buff. So these are different classes. So all of these skills, offensive buffs, debuffs, and summons are in the game now. They have particle effects. They have the correct mana cost. They have their effects going well, and they've all been tested. Some of them have like minor bugs, but they're pretty much working for the most part. And this is actually something that I probably shouldn't have gone so broad on. I think I should have focused more on like a vertical slice. Like looking back, I spent probably a month on first thinking about skills, creating skills, implementing them, and then adding the sound effects, the sprites for them, and the particle effects, and then triggering them all at the right times. What I should have done instead was focus on a few, maybe like two offensive, two buffs, two debuffs, and two summons, make sure that they're working correctly, and then move on to work on something else. But I was just really into like the skills and just it was just fun making them. So yeah, all of these are in here, um, and I really tried to differentiate the classes from each other. So warrior, mage, ranger, they're kind of like generic, to be blunt. Knight is also kind of generic, but I still think it's like a cool class. The berserker, that was one of the first classes I liked where I was like, oh, this is really unique. Like it deals damage. The berserker deals damage to himself to deal more damage to the opponent. Attacks like multiple times. Marksman is like a traditional like a Deadeye kind of class, just like really good with the bow. WindWalker, it's like using like wind type. Like a lot of their skills are doing wind damage. Elemental is like a such a Gandalf strong mage, wizard generic class, but I think also a cool class. Necromancer, it's like summoning enemies and executing them and debuffing enemies. Beastmaster, another really cool, unique class that I thought of I think like a few weeks in when I was working on the skills. I was like, oh, I think I can make a cool new class. And then this class can have two pets. Every other class can just have the one, and they're kind of essentially their gameplay loop in combat at least revolves around um, working on their or like using their pets as their tools to win combat. Spellsword derives from the warrior. Um, just deals essentially has elemental damage that scales with physical damage, and they have like cool AOE skills, single target skills, blah blah blah. And yeah, so these are the offensive skills, some buff skills. Berserker, I like this skill a lot. It's called Berserk, lose control, deal a lot of damage, has a lot of crit chance, takes double damage, is forced to auto attack or flee until combat ends. Mass berserking, we saw that earlier. Let's see. Beastmaster, it's different candies it can feed to its pets to make them deal more damage, or be tanky. Spellsword can imbue his or her weapon to deal additional elemental damage. We got the debuffs, Mystic Curse, random status effect, Feed to the Wolves. This one was really unique. One of my favorite skills, probably, because I just think it fits so well with like what a Beastmaster would do. Uh, Mark your targets for your pets to dismember, and that's like all you need to hear for you to understand what it does. And in the back end, it's so easy to do. Increase the target enemy's threat by 1,000, which makes the AI in our game, the way they choose their targets is based on our threat system. So whoever has the highest threat level is the most likely to be attacked. And yeah, that's just I really like that skill, and it's just yeah, it's really cool. Then we have our summons, which we saw earlier. This one kind of bugged out, but it's working. At least the summoning part and being attacked and attacking as well. There's probably some like damage logic that I'm missing somewhere, but it was working before, so I suspect it would be a pretty quick fix. Let's see. Yeah, so this is just like thematically what the classes would be. Oh, and another thing I wanted to mention is when I was designing these skills, I really wanted to stray away from um, skills losing their impact and meaning as the players began to reach max level. So as you can see, most of these skills, or all of these skills, scale with some stat, some secondary stat, magic damage, water damage, pet damage, and even the buffs scale with some sort of like stat, or yeah, some sort of stat. So, and hopefully I made them different enough where um, the same class won't have like a same type of skill, but one's just objectively better. Yeah. So that's skills. And then we can see here in descriptible objects, these are the skills, these are different classes and what skills they have. They all have, this is kind of what it looks like in the descriptible object side. Damage sound, Berserk Candy, Command Pulverize, Berserker, Elementalist, boom. These are different attributes in our game. Defaults in bold, so what each player starts out with. Secondary stats, and these primary stats affect the secondary stats. Special modifiers, and then for each class, they'll get additional stats per level up. From 1 to 10, it'll just be 2 to each stat, and then from there, it kind of breaks down into different stat allocations per level based on what class you are. Okay, combat design, combat feel, turn-based. Initialization. So we talked about initialization with the initiative check. I mentioned the threat system, where targets who have higher threat are more likely to be picked as a target. Basic combat, time to kill. Most combat counters will be 2 versus 1 or 2 versus 2. Balancing will probably be done around this. This hasn't been revisited in a while, so I probably need to think about that a little more. These aren't in there. Terrify and Disarm aren't in there either. Neither is Weaken. It's just these 4 for now. Damage taken. These are different like calculations for damage. Essentially, I just went on like a big Googling spree and looked up popular damage formulas for different types of games, and it seems like the one we have works well based on the testing we've done. Yeah, so this hasn't been implemented yet. This was a concept I came up with called special attack, very similar to like a critical attack, but it's decided by what weapon you're using. So if you're using a staff, a fire staff, you have a chance to do a special attack, which is only a basic attack. So a basic attack has a chance to either crit or trigger a special attack. And special attacks can also crit. It might sound a little confusing, but that's the logic. So Fire Staff could do an Eternal Burn, dealing like a big DOT. Great Sword, deal a lot of damage, blah, blah, blah. Just like another layer, I guess, of gameplay, essentially, that I thought like basic attacks with crit is fun, but something like on top of that would be even cooler. So this isn't in yet. We have like the stat in our game, so we just need to like add this in, which wouldn't be that hard, I guess. Probably like a day or two of work. Pets are in our game, as we saw. PvE. Yeah, that's pretty much combat. Questing is not in our game yet. Progression. Monsters give experience based on their level, and their tagged difficulty multiplies their experience given. So we can just pull up the experience table. I found this online. The formula I used, don't remember off the top of my head, but this was, I think it was was essentially very close to how D&D handled their experience gain. But yeah, essentially to get to level 100, you need this much experience. To get that much experience, you need to kill this many easy monsters, this many medium monsters, this many hard monsters. And then bosses would give this much monster experience, which is just one monster times 20 essentially. It's like you're killing 20 monsters. And this is the little formula used. Yeah. Pet leveling. Pets will level separately to their players. PvE, no. Tutorial, no. Assets that we have in their game. Yeah, the highlighted ones are in. Economy design, not really fleshed out yet. Achievements, probably not going to have early on. So this is our loot table. I need some water. So our loot table, this is all preliminary stuff as well. So based on what type of chest it is, you're guaranteed these items, and then you also have a chance to get these items. Monsters, this needs to be done. It's not filled out yet. Item list, just kind of what they are, what their description is, notes. Item generation logic. So this is what I was working on yesterday. Trying to just generate 100,000 plus items. And initially, I didn't have anything on sheets, and I was going to just generate a bunch of items. Didn't know how many items I would generate, and I was doing the math, and it was a 1,250,000 items, which was like some gigabytes of storage. So I broke it down into the sheets, and how you read this is from 1 through 10. At level 1 through 10, at each level, for each of these item types, you will find 20 commons and 10 uncommons. So that means at level 1, I will find 20 common one-handed swords, 20 common one-handed wands, and so on and so forth. At level 2, I'll find 20 common one-handed swords, 10 uncommon one-handed swords, 20 common one-handed wands, and 10 common one-handed wands. So from 1 through 10, 10 times 6 times 30, believe that's the right math. It's 1,800 items. Each item is about 1.32 kilobytes, which gives me about 2 megabytes at this level range. Total items generally increase as you level up, as you can see here. And the total is about 142 megabytes, which doesn't sound that bad to me, but I've never generated this many items before. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now and seeing how that would play out. So I'm going to now generate a few items to demonstrate how that works. This is the file structure I have right now. 0 represents the lowest rarity, so these are common items. And then from here you can see folders representing the levels. So these are all 200 swords at level 11 that are common, basic. They have different item levels. As I scroll through them, you'll see the randomness at play. They all have physical damage because they're a weapon. They're a physical weapon. And then now, using my generator, let's generate not all. Let's do two-handed spears from 30 to 40. And we'll generate 30 spears, why not? That's gonna run, it should take a few seconds. Did I do something wrong? I don't think it should take that long. Okay, while that's running, we can talk about something else. I think I may have like done a wrong setting somewhere, but that's okay. So yeah, these are different item types. This is the vendor. Um, so an NPC might sell, or no, this is the cash shop, right? This is the NPC shop. So the cash shop, we'd sell different like experience boosts, turkey legs, premium chests, blah blah blah. And these are like the effects and the costs. The NPC shop, when you're triggered an NPC encounter, if you beat that NPC, they'll join you, and for a few days you'll have access to their wares, and you can buy certain things from their shop. And these are like the chances that these things might show in the shop. Okay, I think the items are done now. Let's see why it took so long. Yeah, it's because looks like I generated it from 30 to 40. So it's 10 times 30, so 300 instead of 30, what I was trying to do. Um, so yeah, at level 30, you have these uncommon spears, and you can see that their names also reflect the stat that they have. So a brilliant spear, it's brilliant because intelligence is high, brute-like because strength is high, fiery, fire damage. And then item level takes all these stats into consideration to figure out what that item level should be. So generally speaking, the higher the item level, the better stats, not better stats you have, but the value of your item is essentially just higher because the stat value, the sum of the stat values are high. This one should be pretty good. Nimble Spear. High dex is HP. Seems pretty good. But yeah, that 94 is pretty high. 97 over here. Strength and int. Having two primary stats is really beneficial. Yeah, so this is item generation with the different amulets. And then when you're actually like playing the game, we have reference to the name of the item that lives on our actors. Main hand weapon name, headgear name, main hand weapon, headgear. This is a reference to these items, and these affect the player's stats. Let's see. Monsters. This is what I need to work on next. Generating different monsters and these encounters. And just testing kind of what combat would look like early on versus an easy monster, like 1 versus 1, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, 2 versus 1, 2 versus 2, and see kind of how that would look with like the common items that a character at a certain level will find. So that involves just a lot of testing. Um, but yeah, like made a lot of progress. Um, and it's been about 5 months, but yeah, excited to kind of see this through and um, see where we can get with this. So yeah, thanks for watching.